Insanity.
Insanity. Dr. Fred Moss. How are you doing,
my
man?
Zen Warrior, Sam Morris. What the hell's going on with us tonight? Who are we with? What are we doing?
Holy shit. I am fucking excited.
Talk to me.
Tonight we are interviewing one of my very good friends, Kenny Aronoff, one of the most well-known, well-received drummers in the entire world, a man who has drummed on 300 million albums sold.
What?
And been nominated for 60 Grammys? Is that right, Kenny? Yeah,
well,
seriously.
Have they even given out 60 Grammys?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, dude, those numbers are the best of my calculation. You know, when I wrote my book autobiography, they said, "Well, we need some taglines to promote it." Well, how many? And then they were talking about stupid stuff like, how many sticks do you think you broke in your lifetime? Like, are you kidding me? I don't fucking know.
That's true. My God.
I know I broke 18 in one show once, but the thing is, so then I started looking. The best I could do is come up with gold, platinum, diamond records, like 1,300 of them. But that took months to research, you know? And then
no
the
doubt.
300 million records.
If you go to Kenny's website, I mean, you look up his what do you call it? Discography.
Yeah,
and guys that he's played with. I mean, it's just insane. It just goes on and on and on. He has to have like drop down menus for certain years, because if he was to just put all those names on there, it would just overwhelm the website. Like SEO wouldn't even be able to keep up with it. He's got drop down
until we got
menus.
to terabyte. Until we got to terabytes, Aronoff wasn't even on. He wasn't even on the internet.
That's right. That's right.
I see how that goes.
Yeah, and you know, Fred and I often talk about how we don't have that much in common, but then I just realized something that we definitely have in common. There is no doubt in my mind that both Fred and I, at some point in our lives, have been drinking beer in T-shirts and jeans and listening to Kenny Aronoff jam out. There absolutely 100% that has happened, you know? Growing up different places and different times, but we have been listening. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we did. Yep. Maybe we didn't know. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like Page says, and, you know, it's not like Clapton says, and check out our drummer, Kenny Aronoff. He doesn't quite always go there. So,
that's right.
Shit, man. Well, how'd you know, well, look what the cat brought in. This is fucking awesome. I just thought I was stopping by for a silly podcast, and look who we get. We get Kenny Aronoff. No wonder I hired you. No wonder we're working together. Now, you know that thing I talked about wanting to talk to my agent last night?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm giving my agent some serious cred because you got Kenny Aronoff on our show. You're the best, Sam.
Oh, well, you know.
Sam's connected.
That's right. That's right.
You know, Kenny, I got a question for you. I'm going to lay this out, but I mean, you know, you're a man, you're a human, you got you're a brother, you're a son, you're a citizen, probably, you know, you might be a ex-felon. You got lots of shit going on. But, you know, the one that you're going to go on is this idea that you're a drummer. I mean, you got to, like, you know, you build that sucker up where you got to take up 2 Wikipedia pages just to get to you. Like, you know, when you got that shit going on, then, you know, you're Kenny fucking Aronoff. But I got a question for you.
Kenny Unfuckwithable Aronoff. I changed my middle name. It used to be Kenny. Yeah, Unfuckwithable Aronoff. That's my new middle name.
So the drummer previously known as Kenny fucking Aronoff or something like that. Okay, that's
Kenny
good.
Fucking Aronoff.
Unfuckable. Kenny unfuckable with.
Unfuckwithable.
No, there's a difference between being unfuckable and unfuckwithable.
You know?
A big one.
He may be 68 years old, but he's still fuckable to a lot of women out there.
Sure. For sure. And now we're already going south.
Which way?
So Kenny,
go ahead.
Kenny, I got a question for you. Seriously. I mean, you aside, and other people have asked you this because, you know, how many sticks have you broke? People ask you silly ass questions.
Yeah.
So this is another one of those. Sorry. I'm just a heathen. I got to know, other than you, who's the best rock and roll drummer ever?
John Bonham.
Oh, of course, right? Okay,
in rock and roll, John Bonham. In jazz, if I had to pick one, I'd call it Buddy Rich. I mean, there's a lot of great drummers in all these categories, but Bonham in rock and Buddy Rich and jazz, if I had to pick one. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, you win, and we can actually, and that's it, folks. There we go, and we got another vote for Zeppelin and Bonham. Thanks for being here, Kenny. Drive safely. Don't forget to try the veal. It's all good, bro. All good. Wow, it's really good to hear. It's really good to hear. I got a Bonham story maybe we'll lay out later, but you know what? That's enough of me rapping here. I'm going to drop this to my good friend and co-host Sam Morris. Sam, help me out here because I'm running. I'm running out of words. Anyways, I'm running out of words, so off to you.
Well, let's talk about what you're up to these days, Kenny. I mean, you kept busy through COVID. I noticed.
Huge.
You were just rocking and rolling the entire time. I mean, there was a lot of people complaining about how COVID was taking them out of the game, and I think you were as busy as ever during COVID. You were busier. You busier than ever. Yeah, you were You were recording remotely, working on sessions, working on all kinds of new material, working on audio of your book, Sex, Drums, and Rock and Roll. So what else? What have you had going on?
Well, as soon as the COVID hit, I'm a fight or flight guy, or adapt or die. Humankind has adapted with tools and technology, but this is something I was reading. Humankind is continually adapted by tools and technology, and I looked at it and went, it's kind of like adapt or die. So when the COVID hit, I made a list. All my tours went. I had a whole world tour with Joe Satriani. I had all kinds of shows with Fogarty.
Whoa! That's pretty fucking cool.
And all kinds of other stuff. And then I have a speaking business that all shut down. So the first thing I thought was, I wonder if people will continue to want to hire me to play drums. There's my studio right behind me. They send me tracks of music, and then I play drums on top. I was wondering with the COVID, will they want to spend money? Didn't even change at all. It went up because music made people feel good. Now, I want to back up about 15 years. I saw the writing on the wall when the CDs and the sales went. When the sales, plummeted, so did the budgets plummeted. So that's where I said, you know what? Adapt or die. I got my studio, and I slowly built up this studio with killer gear. And so you get Kenny Aronoff at a ridiculously affordable rate here. Now, when the COVID hit, I had that going, but then I did something else. I turned my studio into basically a TV studio where I could do virtual speaking events. But the amount of research I had to do, and the learning curve was humongous. I mean, I got Pro Tools here. I get so all the mics are on the drums, because when I do my speaking thing, there's two cameras, one in the speaking place and then one at the drum set. I've got a switcher. Let's talk about the visual part. Where I'm standing, where I'm speaking like I am now, but it's in the other room, I can hit a button and the deck will come up on the screen full. But by the way, I hate when you're doing these Zoom things and either the deck is filling the page or your face is filling the page. So I put a big TV monitor behind me so you can see me and the deck all in one. Then I can hit a button, the deck can fill the screen, and I hit another button and it goes to the camera on the drum set. And behind the drum set is another TV monitor where that's deck
some high-tech shit.
Yeah.
And you're talking about some high-tech shit.
Yeah. So now
adapt or die, Sam. It's adapt or die. That's all this is.
Yeah, so I have a mixer. So from the audio component, headset goes into the mixer. The headset goes into a mixer, somehow goes in the mixer. I get two stereo, left and right, out of this Pro Tools rig here. So all the mics in my studio go into here, and I take a stereo out, goes into the mixer. Then I have backing tracks on another computer that plays music through Digital Performer. That's a left and right out, goes into the mixer. Then my my speech opens with this killer movie that's on my website now, 300 million records sold to 100 top best drummers of all time, Rolling Stone. I'm playing with everybody except Santa Claus in this video. And there's an audio component that goes in the mixer. Got to mix that just right so it doesn't crap out in Zoom.
I
That
was just
goes
going to
all,
say, how the
dude.
hell are you taking all those mic inputs? I mean, we're getting a little technical here. For those
Yeah,
who aren't following, we're talking about digital audio workstations and so forth,
yeah.
Pro Tools, Digital Performer. But how are you taking all of that input coming from all those different sources? Because how many mics did you have on your drums?
Do you guys mind if I don't even understand what you're saying, but the day before the test, I study really hard and pass? Is that okay with you?
We got ahead. We'll send you the cliff notes.
All right, thanks. I'm good. Well, then
So,
keep going. Keep
so
going.
yeah. So you have to tweak the gain structure at every position, coming out of the Pro Tools, coming out of a Digital Performer, every inch of the way you're dealing with gain structure, and it took a long time. And then eventually that all comes out of the mixer, left and right. And you're talking about picking the right cables too. Is it XLR or is it quarter inch? Males. There's XLR, but then you have to put the gain structure on down, bring the fader up. That all goes out of that mixer. Is a left and right that goes into a analog to digital converter. So it's a PreSonus box. So I plug in, and then I come, and oh my God, I got to set that structure so that it comes out and goes
Holy
digitally
cow.
into my computer, into Zoom.
Wow. All right.
And
Are you your
bottom
own?
line, for those who aren't
Yes, I
following
am.
all the technical speak, bottom line is that takes some badass wizardry to
Yeah.
even come up with that idea to be able to adapt like that. So when you're talking about adapt or die, you're talking, I mean, Kenny, something that's always really impressed me about you is you have this level of discipline that is extremely rare. And I know a lot of people in the rock and roll business have, and just the music business in general, have to have a level of discipline. I think it's something where a lot of people, fans will look at musicians, especially rock musicians, and it will kind of be this anti-discipline kind of perception. But I think exactly the opposite is actually true for true professionals like yourself. And I mean, not only that, but I mean, you actually look half your age. You're 68, you look 34. So how are you keeping up, and what is it? Tell us about this discipline that you've had your entire career.
Well, I mean, first of all, when I was in high school, I was on 3 varsity sports by the time I was a sophomore in high school. So it was lacrosse, skiing, and soccer. So I mean, I was getting my ass kicked by coaches, and I loved it. I mean, I was into. I would call myself a rock jock. I had long hair. I was a hippie jock, and so I was born with a massive amount of energy and power, and so I was able to do sports and music at the same time. So I think what happened, I didn't know any of this shit was going on back then. I was just doing what I liked doing. But then later in life, I've seen how that foundation of hard work, self-discipline, and perseverance, teamwork that I learned from a coach saying, "No, Kenny, pass the ball. Get rid of the ball. It's not about you, buddy. It's the team. Get rid of the ball." Whatever, a sport. And so I learned some fundamental stuff without even realizing it, but it paid off. Like, for example, when I graduated high school, the day I graduated high school.
Where was that, Kenny? Where'd you grow up?
Stockbridge, Massachusetts. Western
Where'd you grow up?
Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
Stockbridge.
It's it's where Alice's restaurant was.
I love it there.
So you know where that is, right?
It sure is.
That's a very unique place.
I do.
Yeah, very unique. For people listening, it's one of the most artistic, intellectual, truly liberal little town in the middle of New England. It's like a slice of New York City brought up into the Berkshires, in the 3 hours out of the city into the mountains, where I used to go over to Eric Erickson's house, and he was Sigmund Freud's protege. My best friend's dad wrote The Miracle Worker, the Helen Keller story. I remember, and then his buddy who came up from New York had a house, Arthur Penn, the director of Bonnie and Clyde. I remember I was 13 and I was smoking a doobie, and we had my buddy Tommy had a little cottage up there, and we were jamming out, and it was my turn to steal some beers. I go down there, and I'm stoned. I grab a few beers, and all of a sudden, Mrs. Gibson, Tommy's mom, goes, "Kenny, is that you?" I'm like, "Oh, fuck." I put the beers back, says, "Come in and say hi to everybody." It's Faye Dunaway, Frank Langella, Anne Bancroft, her husband, Mel Brooks. Yeah, all those people just sitting there drinking wine, because we had summer stock up there. That was normal for me. That was just normal.
And
So
this is
anyway,
close by to Tanglewood, right? Where you
Tanglewood,
eventually performed at Tanglewood, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Tanglewood was where the home of this Boston Symphony Orchestra. When I went to school for 5 years to study classical music because there was no school of rock back then, and I was absolutely shit, and that's why I was practicing 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, the day I graduated high school, because I knew I was behind in classical music. But 4 of those 5 years that I studied, I ended up at Indiana University, the #1 school of music, the more hard school to get into and harder to stay in, where you had monster discipline teacher. You know, he was like, I walked in for my first lesson. I didn't have a pencil and eraser. He says, get the fuck out. You get an F. Don't ever show up for any rehearsal, any lesson without a pencil and eraser. I never did that again. But I spent every year while I was at Indiana University trying to get into Tanglewood. And eventually I got in. They only take 7 percussionists in the whole world. But there is where I got to work with Leonard Bernstein, one of America's greatest conductor composers.
The best.
Yeah.
That's who I grew up.
Yeah.
Dadley's the best.
Yeah.
The best.
And so,
I love that guy.
Aaron Copland, Sergio Zawa. I mean, I got my ass kicked, man. This place, there was no hand holding, coddling shit that's going on now. Dude, you either perform when Leonard Bernstein or Sergio Zawa, even more so, when these fuckers stop a 60, 70, 80 piece orchestra to tell you to do something, you got one chance. And if you don't get it right, you are fucking thrown out. There ain't no fucking mom calling you up and saying, well, I don't think, there ain't no fucking, it's just either you perform or you don't. That's some badass training. I like that. That has made me, and, and so you bring it into the later part of my life where I did 7 Kennedy Center honors, and you're in the Obama inauguration, you're performing with Sting and Elton John and Bruce Springsteen and Mellencamp and Lady Gaga and Chris Cornell and Bruno Mars and Steven Tyler and Willie Nelson and all the country people. And you got that much time to rehearse. You have to be able to read and write like a mofo. And you've got to adapt or die on the spot. You got to solve problems. 16 camera shoot. They're recording it, and the drummer can't fuck up. You have other people that can fix in post, but not the drums. Dude, this is a massive, massive pressure. You don't fuck up, man, because if you do, you don't get asked back. And like I said, they don't give a shit if you're black, white, green, purple, or blue. Either you can do the job or you can't. And I love being in that situation.
Kenny, that's some serious shit you just rolled out. And it completely freaking awesome. I really am getting a little bit of what it means to be, well, what it looks like, maybe, what I can imagine it looks like from your eyes while you're rolling around doing all that. And I have the next question for you is based on a book that I actually just completed 10 minutes ago. And that book is by James Clear, and the book is called Atomic Habits. And one thing he speaks about is that when you develop these habits, there is a space for which if you aren't always looking for the next mountain, there'll be a slight dip having developed a new disciplinary habit. Mm-hmm. That there's something about understanding that having developed a habit, you haven't really acquired anything, you haven't really arrived anywhere. There's a steep hill up because, look, Bernstein didn't teach you how to do this shit in COVID. That's you continuing to upgrade. Bernstein doesn't know shit about COVID. Right. And who you were when you were with your master, who you were when you were with, when you're hanging out in Indiana or Tanglewood, who you were isn't the man who got you to be the superstar this last year. There's a continual ongoing slope upward. Can you speak to us about, like, how do you stay, a skier, a varsity skier, I heard that, but how do you stay in how do you deal with the diamond slopes? How do you deal with the moguls of what it really means to be a premier, ongoing, 68 motherfucking years old rock star of extraordinary proportion? What is that about?
Well, there's different, it was different at different stages of my life. Right now, I have wisdom. Right now, I see the pattern of the mogul and up. So if I'm going in the mogul, now I'm like, Been there, done that. Stay the course, Kenny. I know you may not want to be in that mogul, but you know that mogul, there's the gift right in when you're in that mogul to set you so fucking high up on that mountain. Now, when you're 18, you're like, oh shit, the mogul. Oh, I'm fucking suck. I'm a failure. I suck. I'm a loser. All this shit. But you have to, the people who survive and become big at what they do, persevere through that experience of the mogul. They don't die. They don't give up. They feel like shit, but they stay in the game, and then they start acquiring knowledge. Where they start, wait a minute. I've been in this mogul 30 times, and every time seems like I come out of it. And then you start going, and you start learning. So if you can get through those tough times and learn from those experiences, and you, basically, as they call it, the gift of every experience, you will become a very wise person. And now, in your later years of life, you're going like, seen that, done that. Yeah, okay. It's like a running back in football. I have a line I came up with. It's this. I'll never be as great as I want to be, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life trying to be as great as I can be. Now, that's a running back in football. He sees the end zone. He spends his whole career trying to get in. Does he get in every time? Fuck no. He may even break his leg one season, but he's focusing on end zone. So when you're going into that mogul, you're like, I'm in the mogul, but man, I'm shooting up there. I'm going up. So while I'm in the mogul, I'm keeping my sights on there. I'm just dealing with the mogul.
That's so great.
Real, so real. I love it. Lane, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was just going to say, this is something that occurred to me the other day, that I'm not going to allow myself to complain until I've made sure that all the things that are within my control have been handled. Because what sense does it make to actually complain about your circumstances unless, if there's something right in front of you that you're not actually addressing, that you're not doing, then complaining is idiotic. It's completely idiotic. And there's something that I wanted to just kind of throw in here, reflect back or whatever. It's around sort of the perceived notion of being stuck with something. Say, I know a lot of people, certainly during COVID, have felt stuck and aimless. Like, what do I do now? Oh my God, so many things have changed, but what do I do now? But if you're in the habit, and what you're talking about is the habit of not being complacent. And if you're already in that habit of not being complacent, then you're going to keep moving where someone else might be complacent and then blaming the circumstances, but it's actually because to a certain degree they became complacent when things didn't change that much, and so part of what I'm hearing is, just addressing, being really honest with ourselves and go, okay, is it really my circumstances, or am I just used to being comfortable, and am I used to not thinking outside of the box? And I get that the way that you've lived your life, and you were telling me stories before about how you've moved from classical to rock and roll to country, and you've just kind of evolved as your situation has evolved, as your circumstances have evolved, and you figured out the next thing. You've always been looking at, well, what's the next thing to happen now, versus becoming complacent and sort of sitting on a fixed identity and saying, well, I'm one of the top 100 drummers in the world. I can kind of sit back and just enjoy this, status and notoriety.
Never sit back.
That's not your thing. You're always looking at what the next thing is.
Absolutely. Now, there's a couple of things that you brought up here. First of all, that we're humans. So, I mean, when we're complaining or we go into those childhood emotions like, oh, I suck, or oh, I'm a loser, that shit is the stuff you do when you're a kid. We're never going to lose those initial reactions to something like the COVID comes up. Man, this sucks, man. Blah, blah, all this negative shit, man. But what you can do as an adult, and what I do is like, oh yeah, that's that human nature that is still in me, that when I was a kid. But I recognize it and I go, hey, okay, you recognize it? You're never going to get rid of that. You're triggered. All these things are triggering that little childhood shit. But what we do now, Kenny, is when you start feeling like a loser or you start feeling any of that negative shit, we do this now. I made an agreement with myself. I made an agreement. I said, no, Kenny, like you want you go from validation. That's one of the things I work on. You find yourself wanting to get validation. I go, no, we don't do that anymore, Kenny. Self-validation, honesty, which is what you brought up, Sam. You brought that up. You said it's that thing of being honest. That's the key, man. All the answers are in there. The honesty. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Just look at if somebody who's listening to this feels like they suck or they're not as good as they should want to be and blah blah. Hey, man, that's just life. So, first of all, you don't suck. Look, I'm not going to mention somebody. I could tell you somebody. Oh, dude, he was a guest on. He's written 7 books. He was a guest on in metal, and I had dinner with him, and he asked me a couple questions, and then his head dropped down heavy. He went, wow, yeah, I've had some failures, and I've made some big mistakes. And me, I'm looking at this guy like I really look up to the guy. Went, no, dude. It just rolled out of my mouth. There are no failures. There are no mistakes. All they are is events that bring you or brought you to this dinner. So in other words, if you look at it like that, if I go like, you're a fucking piece of shit, you get ill. But if I say, you know what? I really love you. You're a cool dude. You feel good. So if you got to do that to yourself, man, you got to go like, you know, the human child part going, God damn, this is taking too long to get this beat or this thing. The new way of thinking is like, calm down, Kenny. We don't get upset like that. We don't give up anymore. We don't blame ourselves. We don't blame that. Like what you were saying. What we do is we're now in the mogul, as you said it, Doc, and we're just going to stay on this and we're going to get through this. But let's be upbeat about it, and you will persevere, but you'll get there faster because you're up and positive. There is no negative. They're just experiences that get us to the next level. That's how I got through COVID. Oh my God, I lost a shitload of money, but I did fine. I made it. The thing is, it feels so good. You know, you take one step, then you take another step, take another step. If you do nothing, it's like math. If you do nothing, you get nothing. 0 equals 0. It's like math. If you don't do anything, you're going to get nothing. That's why entitlement sucks. I told my son this. I'll give you 2 bits of advice, you know, as a father should. I said, 1, always think you're on your own. Even though, of course, I got his back. But when you think you're on your own and it's up to you to navigate yourself through this life, this short life, it's up to you. You're not looking for other people. You're doing as much as you can to take care of yourself. The next thing I said is stay healthy because you're on your own. You're on your own. So the more you're capable of taking action and being responsible for yourself, the better your life will be. And you did ask me about health, and I have 8 steps to a healthy life, which I can get into if you want me to.
Kenny Aronoff, top 100 drummers of all time, Rolling Stone magazine, top 10 life coaches of all time, Life Coach magazine.
It really is guru level brilliance that is just dripping out of that pie hole of yours. I have some questions for you about this because I'm just awestruck. Look, I hang out with I've hung out with some pretty brilliant people who know how to play the game of life and who talk some talk, but this is not that. This is you just delivering from your soul. So I got a question for you. You know, I'm thinking, well, how did this guy pick this up if who he's really doing is being one of the best, you know, just drumming away all day and then technologically and then 3-time varsity athlete and then Stockbridge. And then I saw you shake your head up when I said something about being an ex-felon, but that's we'll have that conversation later. What I have here is where's this growth and development or the meditation or the nutrition or the, you know, what do you listen to when you're listening to, like when you're receiving from the universe, when you're not just like absolutely bringing the whole motherfucker. When you're sitting back
Mhm.
and ready to receive from the universe the magic that's here for us to learn, things that you have already incorporated into your bone marrow, Kenny. What are those things? What are those practices you take that you picked up that level of brilliant wisdom? Because it is outrageous, Kenny, how totally solid and grounded the shit is that just naturally rolls
Yeah.
out of your mouth.
Well,
It's beautiful.
okay. First of all, I mean, there's one element we haven't brought up, and that is you're born a certain way, and who the hell knows where I get? Who the hell knows where I got this makeup to absorb that shit? When I hear something, I go, oh, or even give a shit to hear it. So you're born with a certain makeup, and I'm like, damn. It's like, I've been in a place where I've worked. I did. I worked with a very, very probably overpriced life coach for a year. And I remember my business manager was saying, "God damn, Kenny, you fucking are a sucker for this shit. You're paying way too much to this guy. You better." I said, "Debbie, just chill out. You don't think that? I don't think that's expensive. That's ridiculous. But for some reason, I'm trusting myself, and I know myself that if I'm spending that kind of money, dude, I am doing the work 7 days a week for like it was like a year, 7 days a week. No matter where I was putting in, and I did learn a lot, and it did stick. So why did I even get with a life coach? You know what I mean? Obviously, something resonated, and the thing is, what I'm saying is, I was born to absorb certain things. We all are born with the ability to see certain things. And in this lifetime, I just want to see and experience as much as I can to evolve. I mean, what else is there? I mean, if there's an afterlife, fantastic. I hope I come back like as light. I hope I'm done with the physical shit. I come back as light. If there isn't, so what? Then I got the most value out of this life anyway. It's just. So I was born with something. I don't even know what to call it. And so from there, I have absorbed shit. I do know that ever since I was a little kid, I was sort of very aware of untangible things. Like the type of stuff I talk about just resonates with me. So you know what? I didn't make this fucking car. I'm just driving it. Talk to the manufacturer, my mom and dad, or the God or whoever you believe in. But I'm just trying to keep the fucker on the road.
Tell us about your musical
Beautiful.
mentors.
Awesome.
Who are your mentors musically? Who just kind of who really taught you something in any kind of way? Doesn't have to be drums. Could be music.
Okay, yeah.
Could be music business. It could be just kind of the
Yeah.
overall attitude, sustaining your energy. Like who are your mentors musically?
Well, in rock and roll, I mean, you probably know the story. At 10 years old, I was out playing outside, with my brother. There was nothing to watch on TV back then. My mom screams at us to come in the house, and we think, oh, shit, we're in trouble, which usually was the case. We get in there, and she's pointing to this black and white RCA TV set we had with the rabbit ears and the tinfoil.
Ed Sullivan.
Yeah. And there's 4 guys on TV.
Ed Sullivan.
It's like they got long hair. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. And they got, suits and electric guitars. And, lead singer goes, she loves you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I'm bouncing off the wall. So it resonated with me. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they're from. All I know is I want to do that. So I go, Mom, who are they? She said, they're the Beatles. Well, I want to be in the Beatles. Call them up. I want to play in that band. And so that they resonated, and I was just like goo. I mean, I'd never felt anything like that before, and I was only 10. And so the Beatles, I would like to say, were mentors to me, because then it was like I was living and breathing. I mean, the cool story is 50 fucking years later, I get called to do this CBS special called The Night That Changed America. And I'm now I'm in the house band that's honoring the Beatles for the Ed Sullivan Show, and I get to play with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr.
No
So
shit.
50 years later, I'm playing with my heroes. My head's going cuckoo. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to get to use this in an interview someday. No, but then I
That is
got to
so
play with
great.
Stevie Wonder, who was also a mentor. Stevie
Mm.
Wonder, oh my God! And then Jeff Lynne from ELO, and then Joe Walsh from the Eagles, Dave Grohl, and all these other people. But
From the James Gang, man.
fuck,
That's James Gang. That Eagles is that's
yeah,
late in the career.
exactly. James Gain, anything he does is spectacular. So the thing
Indeed.
is that Ringo, when I got done playing with all these bands and 30 minutes left in the show, I'd go out to look for my wife in this arena in LA, and oh my God, there's these elite seats. So it's like, there's Tom Hanks. So I did that thing you do. So we knew each other real well. Tom Hanks, his wife, Ringo, his wife, Paul McCartney, his girlfriend, George Harrison's widow, John Lennon's widow, Yoko. Let's see, Tom Cruise, Sean Penn, and Johnny Depp. And they're all there. And I'm like, oh my God. And they're all acknowledging me. But Ringo's going, bravo, Mr. Aronoff. Great job, Kenny. That was spectacular. Now, I played the Grammys with him the night before, so I'd met him, but never did I have this moment. So I'm like been beaten up from playing, so I'm very humble. And I get down on one knee because everyone's looking at me. And before I could say anything, he goes, "It's okay, Kenny. I'm already married."
Ringo landed on that.
But here, I said, no. And this is what rolled out of me. The reason why I was taking my time, because I thought, this is corny, but I said, fuck it. This is how I feel. I went, you're the reason why I play the drums. And you're the reason why I play rock and roll. And you and the Beatles has set me on a course at age 10 that I've been on ever since. Wow. And I got up and I walked away and I started thinking, you know what? In order to be really, really, really good at something, you got to love it. It's got to be your soul. It's got to be your truth. It's got to be your purpose. It's got to be your essence. And that's what happened when I saw the Beatles. So they were my mentor. That's why I said them. They were the first mentor to me, because holy shit, look how long that lasted. That lasted that long. They made me realize what my purpose in life is before I even knew what those words meant. They just, and here's a crucial thing. So I went through all that college and all that classical training because there was no school rock. I get into the Jerusalem Symphony Orchestra when I graduated, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you did it! You went from shit to Shinola. You did it, Kenny! Bravo!" And I turned it down. Why did I turn it down? What? This is crucial. Without me really understanding it, my brain said, "You got to do this, Kenny." My heart was saying, "No, we still want to be in the Beatles. We want to rock." So I turned down certainty for complete uncertainty. I turned down certainty for possibility. Who do you call up to get into a rock and roll band? I was living in Stockbridge again. I moved back home. I was practicing 8 hours a day, studying drum set with somebody in New York, drum set with somebody in Boston, moved to Indiana. Everyone's like, "What are you going to do in Indiana?" Well, the business model was we had a band. One of the dads invested 30 grand, truck, lights, PA, equipment. We were going to write songs, get a record deal. Then we go on tour and we're on the radio like the Beatles. 3 years we struck out, 27. I'm like, fuck, man, when is this going to happen? So I'm gonna go to New York. I figured I knew more people there. And my parents were 3 hours away. So I'm having lunch with this singer-songwriter, and she goes, "Hey man, do you know this guy? Have you heard of this guy? He lives in town. He's on this new network called MTV, and makes records. And yeah, I've seen his videos. He's all right, yeah. And he's on making records, and he just got off tour with Kiss, and he fired his drummer last night." I went, ding, 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 ding. Oh my God. Radio, touring, TV, holy shit. I go running out to a payphone, call up the guitar player. He says, "Well, I'll call you in a couple of weeks." Calls me in a couple of weeks. Long story short, I audition, and after I only plays 2 songs, and I'm like, "Oh God, this is it. This is it. I gotta get this." The guitar player goes upstairs, talks to the boss, comes down, goes, shakes my hand, smiles, goes, "Welcome to hell." I'm like, What the fuck does that mean? Okay, 5 weeks later, I'm in LA making a record at Cherokee Studios, one of the big studios in LA. And in 2 days, I'm fired. What the fuck? I played with Leonard Bernstein. How can you fire me? That didn't have shit to do with getting a song on the radio to be a hit. Bernstein didn't, I mean, he eventually, yeah, what I learned from him, but the producer wanted to get this record done fast. You got to get the drums first. I had no experience playing drums in a recession. The North Star is to get it on the radio. See, to be great at something, it's all about me. To be really great and have a career, it's about we.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know the we. I didn't know teamwork at all. I had to that.
You know, and clearly not a failure. It's clearly not an event that's a failure. You know, this is another stepping stone on the way, exactly in the right place for you.
Yeah, that was listen, so that guy ended up being John Mellencamp. So
yeah, I heard of him.
Yeah, when John told me to go home, a very pivotal moment. What came out of my mouth was the most crucial, life-changing moment. He said, "You go home." I went, "No fucking way."
Ah, yes.
And the band was like, they were like, "Uh-oh, this is going to be a fist fight." And so then I'm scrambling. This is the adapt or die. I didn't know any of this shit. I can now look back and go, "Oh my God." That's why I say it's in my DNA, I think. You're born with some of this shit. So I go, well, because I felt like a loser. I felt like embarrassed. I'm not going home. Holy shit. I can't go home. I can't live with myself. So I said, well, look, am I still your drummer or what? And he goes, he's smoking. He goes, yeah, but you're not playing on the record. I went, well, I'm scrambling. I go, I'm going to go in the studio and I'm going to watch those guys play my drum parts on your record and I'll learn from them. Yeah, I'll learn. Yeah. And then I'll benefit from that. And hey, you'll benefit because I'm your drummer, right? Silence. I'm like, fuck. I went, okay, you don't have to pay me. I'll sleep on the couch. And he went, cool. I stayed there. And that was the beginning of holy fuck. I don't know. I had to learn how to serve him, his music, the producer, the other musicians. All of a sudden, it was pivoting from me to we and starting to understand, wow, holy shit. It's not about me. And that band, John was no hand-holding, coddling dude. It was, he said in my book, he said, yeah, I respected Kenny for saying no to me. He didn't tell me that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. So Mellencamp, if I recall, has Indiana roots. Was that, you know, he's an Indiana boy right from the beginning. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Was that where this was, or were you already out of Bloomington?
No.
Were you already rolling?
No, I was in Bloomington because that's where that band I had was based out of, and I was going to move there, and then I just stayed once I got the gig, and it was a tough road, and then then 2 years later I vowed I'd make a record. I'm not leaving this band till I make a record and redeem myself. And the next record was the hardest record I've ever made in my life. And John, literally a week before the record, he passes us in the dark on a Harley at 80 miles an hour, no helmet. Fucking dog jumps out, hits the bike. All I see is sparks and an explosion. The bike went down. He got on top of the bike while it's spinning and somehow miraculously pushed off right before the bike hit a tree. Because we slammed on our brakes and we're looking and he's limping. He's in shock across the road. Anyway, so that happened. He's going through a divorce, and the biggest thing that I didn't know about back then, he was about to lose his record deal. So he's screaming at us for creative ideas and innovative ideas to get these songs on the radio. And so I walk in one day, and it's not a fun record at all. It was like 9 weeks of hell. That's the welcome to hell part. So I walk in one day, and the co-producer's got this metal box. I go, hey, Don, what's that? He goes, oh, it's a Lin 1 drum machine. I'm like, drum machine? Those replace drummers. I'm like, what? What's going on? Fight, adapt or die. I grab the machine and the manual. I go, well, I'm going to program this fucker. I'm like, what? I programmed what I was playing, give it back to them. I'm sitting in the lounge going like, am I the horse and buggy and the car just showed up? I mean, is this the end of the drummer? I mean, what's going on? And then I eventually get called into the control room. John goes, we need a drum solo. We need some drum thing here after the second chorus. I'm like, I'm excited because I'm back on the record, but I'm going like, holy shit. If I don't save the song, I got to save the song to save my career. So I'm crapping in my pants, and we spend the whole day getting drum sounds, and all I'm thinking is serve the song, serve the artist. See, I'd learned serve. So that's why the machine is going goo, 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 ga, do, ga, boom, blam. And I come in simple. It's not about chops. It's not about showcasing me. It's just boom, blam with the bass drum to the snare drum. Real simple. And I stop. And I look up, and I got 9 guys in the control room going, yeah.
Sweet.
So you're telling me a drum machine Mellencamp almost went the direction of drum machines. Is that what you're telling me here?
On that song.
On that song, on that particular track.
See that what happened?
You know, I can't hesitate but drop one of Mellencamp's line on you because it came up. I'm like, I can't get out of this fucking interview without dropping this line. It's like he's looking for someone who knows the meaning of "Hey, hit the highway," and that is not you. That's how that goes.
No, but the lyric was, "I need a lover." In this case, I need a drummer who knows the meaning of "not hit the highway." I was that guy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There you go.
That's great. I need a drummer who won't drive me crazy. I need a drummer who knows the meaning of "Hey, hit the highway."
Drive me mad.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I love it. That's funny.
That's fucking.
That's really great.
Nice one, Fred.
That was right on point.
Thank you.
Well played. Well played.
Yeah. Well, thanks for setting me up with your stories. I totally appreciate it. And
there was some other mentors. I'll tell you the next big mentor you appreciate, and I won't dwell on it, and I won't tell a big story, but it was Hendrix. You know, you're listening to the Beatles and the Stones and all this top 40, and all of a sudden Purple Haze came out.
Talk to me.
It was like, whoa. He was like scary, but not. He was such a lovable guy. So,
you know, let me, excuse me for interrupting you because you are music when you speak, but I got to tell you, when you speak to that exact experience, I was in London a couple of years ago and saw the space where Purple Haze, where he died, and the Purple Haze that's around that home now. And when you bring up that name, and when that day when Purple Haze hit the world, that day. It's like, whoa, slow down. You're in church now. You know, there's something you're almost not allowed to say that, and at least stop for a second, take off your hat, and recognize the impact that song had on the world's music and then the whole world scene, and who that man was, 27 years young. So bring it. But I just wanted to pay honor. And Sam calls me Hendrix sometimes, by the way, but that's a different story. And I just want to honor what that really was, this moment in time that you're memorializing right now. So thank you.
Well, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, it was when I saw him play live when Axis Bold as Love came out, which is the second record with the Experience Band. And on the way home, 90 minutes was Troy, New York, driving back to Massachusetts. Nobody said a word. It was like, holy fuck. It was like, I mean, it was
right.
I mean, it wasn't funny. It wasn't angry. It was.
No, Angel's on that one, right? Angel's on that record, I think.
On Axis Bold as Love?
I could be wrong.
I can't remember. But I mean,
I believe it is. Yeah.
I mean,
that's a totally different thing too.
So
is that late in his career, Kenny?
No, Axis was second. It was.
Is that just the second one?
68, right?
Yeah. All You Experience, and then Axis Bold as Love was You got me floating, round and round. You got me floating.
Yeah, he put out all those. He put out Are You Experience, Axis, and Electric Ladyland, all within a couple of years of each other.
Yeah.
It was a hugely creative
rainy
time.
day. Rainy day. Rain all night. But you know, and
Oh
I played with
yeah.
Mike Finnegan, the organ player that was on that. And
Mm.
I mean, and you know, I got to do the Hendrix Experience tour right before the pandemic, and we're doing all the stuff pretty much off of Are You Experience.
Right, right, right.
And so I got to be Mitch Mitchell.
That's amazing.
Dude, so I said to
Come
Joe,
on.
Joe, you realize Mitch, he's a jazz drummer, jamming. I said, you want me to hold it down or cut loose? He went,
And when you
fucking
say Joe, you're talking about Satriani, right?
yeah.
He was playing the lead.
Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah.
Which Joe would you think he was talking
So
about?
it
That,
was like
Sam?
we were
You
doing,
know?
let's see, we were doing manic depression. We were doing
Hey Joe. Hey Joe.
we didn't do Hey Joe. Somebody else said we did
Foxy Lady.
You Don't Live Tomorrow. And we had Doug
Yeah,
Pinnick.
sure.
Doug Pinnick from King's X was singing and playing bass. It was perfect. We did what was the first song we did? We even did Third Stone from the Sun for a while. Bam, 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 the jazz one. Oh, we did Voodoo Child. Bam, ba-dum, bam, boom, boom, bam, bam, ba-dum, bam. Bam, ba-dum, bam, boom, boom, ba-dum, bam, ba-dum, bam, ba-bow, bam, ba-dum, bam, 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 ba-dum. And then yeah, I Don't Live Today. When we got in the middle was, you know, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, then we stop. Then you go it was like drum solo on top of his shit. It got so out
Oh
there.
yeah.
It was
Mitch Mitchell was just doing constant fills, but he
Yeah.
did them so tastefully. I mean,
Yeah.
most drummers doing all those fills, it would be like, "Are you kidding me, man? Just sit in the pocket, stop with the
So,
fills." But with
check-
Mitch, he would do fills, and it
Yeah.
was tasteful. It was like it was part of his playing style.
It was part of his style, absolutely. So now check this out. So I did a Joe Satriani record. We were supposed to go on tour during the pandemic. So we didn't do that. So he says, let's do another record. We're finishing it up right now. And I play, you know, he sends me really thick guitar tracks and there's a programmed drums. And so I start from there. And basically what I'm saying is he wanted me, it seemed like I started to realize he wanted me to play a little bit like I was playing on that tour, which is way busy. And there's one song, I'm playing so many fills, and I thought, there's no way. And Joe says, yeah, that's what I want. I'm like, whoa, I would have gotten fired in about 99% of any gig if I played like that in any gig. But the wild thing is, through most of the song, I'm just like, it's this real R&B song. And then also at the end, maybe it's faster. I mean, I'm just feeling all over the place. I'm like, that's wrong. And Joe goes, no, that's right.
I love it.
It's going
I
to be
love it.
interesting. Anyway,
All right.
Hendrix.
Top three drummers whose styles you have liked to emulate in situations like that. If you were to have, say, like, because I'm sure there's a lot of gigs kind of like that where you're brought in, they're like, all right, play like so and so. This is we're going to cover such and such.
Well,
what are the top three drummers that you're like, man, I would never think to play like that naturally, but that's a cool way to play?
Okay.
So I like to say disqualify Bonham, Mitchell, and Starr.
Why?
Because we've already given them three, and we know we could put one or two or three of them there.
The thing is, okay, the guys I go to where I go like, you know what, this sounds like I should do this. Keith Moon, Bonham, Ringo Starr, Mitch Mitchell, definitely, and Ginger Baker.
Ginger Baker. I was going to say Ginger Baker. Yeah.
That's so sweet. And speaking of Ginger Baker, I heard, because for the listeners, you know, I blew off our first effort here. I heard that night, by the time I was ready to talk to you, that you were prepping up for In the Presence of the Lord. What the hell? Talk to us about that. What's that? What the hell is going on?
That song came out sick because Blondie Chapman, who's such a soulful singer, who was with the Beach Boys forever and was friends with the Stones, and that's he's from South Africa, but he's very English sounding, and he sang it and it sounded equally as good as Steve Winwood. Equally. And he sang it sitting down while he was playing guitar. It's sick. It's sick. We did it just like
Where is it? Where is it? How can we hear it?
It's being
can we hear it?
Yet. We just recorded it. But that thing is so heavy.
Sweet.
It's so going to be so amazing. This is as good as it gets. It's going to be amazing. And in the middle section where they speed up, I suddenly went, you know what? This is where I'm going to do something different. Where it usually goes, I can't remember how it goes, but it goes into double time, and Ginger went do do ba ba do boo ba ba do boo ba 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 do ba do ba, and I decided I'm going to Aaronize it. So I went ba boom ba boom ba boom ba boom ba boom ba ba boom. I did a Motown beat to drive it harder than Ginger Baker did, and then I slide into Ginger Baker style to come out of it. So it was like, so like that's an example how I'll go. If I were to write it on my chart, I go, or if I'm going to go to a part where you need to get a little crazier, I'll go Moon on my chart right there, Moon or Mitchell or Bonham in a section. And so I'll think those guys, that kind of thing.
Well, we go back to what you said before. You know, I get really, thanks for chilling my bones with the beauty of that story just within a few days ago. And I really, I'm stuck with, if that's as good as it gets, this is the backslash on what you said earlier. Like, if you've just arrived at the top of Everest, where are you going upward? Like, what does it take to keep going higher than the peak of Everest?
Well, there's always another peak. Like I said, I'll never be as great as I want to be, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life trying to be as great as I can be. There's always another. It's like the running back gets a touchdown. Give me the ball again. Touchdown. Give me the ball again. It's like there's always another way to revisit. Hell, climb Everest again then. That's what I say. Climb Everest again, but a different way.
Climb Everest again.
Just climb it come up a different way. And you will learn something through the process.
Yeah.
So it's endless. So for me, the most important thing at this point, really it's always, but even more so now because you get older, you get wiser, is to be fucking aware of what's going on so that you don't miss an opportunity that's coming at you. You know what? When I moved back to Bloomington, Indiana, everybody said, "Why are you going there? There's no music business in Indiana." I said, "Well, we're starting this band." That led me to John Mellencamp. Now, maybe it was my divine angels telling me. I don't know. But thank God I did it. So, that's the thing. Trust in that spirit thing inside you, because stuff's coming at you. And a lot of times we're like saying, you are getting in the way of yourself. We get in the way of ourselves more than anybody on the planet.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing here is putting in the time and the discipline to be a master of your craft and knowing that chance favors the prepared. The universe is responding to the fact that you're putting in the time, discipline, and passion. And it's out there listening, and it's coordinating things that your logical mind never would be able to coordinate, but it's putting together those synchronicities because it's paying attention to you and how much discipline, time, energy, and passion you're giving your craft. And
absolutely.
There's
beautifully said.
It's a relationship.
Yeah.
You do your part, they're there, they're ready to help you. The universe is, hey, take your time. If you don't get it this time, you'll get it next time. But we're here to help. And I agree that my dad tried to impart that information on me when I was a kid. He said, don't worry about these other people. I said, yeah, but. And he says, don't worry about it. Focus on what you're doing. And eventually he gave up on me because I was too young and focusing. But Mike, don't worry about Mike. Focus on your stuff. But it stayed in my head, obviously, because I just said it. So that's what makes me think you're born with wisdom, where it's just that you're born with wisdom in a child's body and mind. So there's where the education is.
It's like we're born with the wisdom and then we start to take on all this dumb shit.
Yeah, of course.
For the first 20, 30 years of our lives. And then we have to gradually go back to the wisdom that we actually had when we were born, but have it more integrated.
Yeah.
I 20 or 30. Mine actually went 61 years. So Kenny, what look, it is too much fun to talk to you for sure. And I want, as Ken says all the time, can we have you back? But I don't want to really say that. But I do want to ask you in some other way. Like, I can't wait to have you back.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And I want to know, it really is easy to find you. All you have to do is like wiki you. All you have to do is like Google, you probably put an ARA and then it fills it in for you. And so I need to know, like, is there anything you want to tell our listeners or our viewers about how they can follow, learn about you, be with you, listen to you, etc.?
Well, I mean, I do social media. I don't post enough, but I do post. On Instagram, it's Kenny Aronoff. Twitter, it's Aronoff Official. On Facebook, don't even ask me to add you as a friend because I tapped out 15 years ago. People go, why haven't you added me? I'm like, because there's about 2,000 people that are saying the same thing. What am I going to do? Drop,
It's called a fan page. It's called a fan page.
Exactly. I have a fan page.
Follow the fan page.
And then I have LinkedIn. But then you go to my website, www.kennyaronoff. That's where people ask me they can go on that page and send me an email. And if they want me to record drums for them, they reach me there. I've got a book, like you mentioned, Sex, Drums, Rock and Roll. And the book is right underneath this computer. There it is. See? It's me.
Nice.
And cool. I just did an audio version, which is funny because they stupidly thought to do it without me. And I went, what? And I had told the publisher, I can't wait to do my audiobook. I'm got to do it. And they stupidly thought that let's have somebody else. Like, people really want to hear some other guy. That'd be like,
dude, that's just fucking crazy.
Exactly. So,
of all people to replace, you are the wrong dude to replace.
You want to know something that's even more stupid about these people? I won't mention the name. I emailed the book, the audio book, by the way, everybody. And if you want to get a mouthful of me, I talk just like that when I read. I am not holding back. I'm not reading it.
Nice.
I'm fucking telling it. And I'm screaming. I'm screaming at you. So anyway, when I read it, I just said,
I got to listen to that.
I emailed to them 2 days ago. They said, hey, since the book came out June 1st, why haven't you sent me social media pictures with a tagline where they can order it? And by the way, why is my audiobook not on the new releases? Never heard back from them. It's like,
Unreal.
Remember I told you? You're on your own. So
you're on your own.
So, but you know what? When my book hardcover came out, I spent 11 months and hired a publicist out of my dime and paid a shitload of money to do it right. And I will do it right with the audiobook. And, they just, it's just, I remember Mellencamp always screaming about the label and the manager and and all these people. And I'm going, oh, yeah, that's right. They don't do their job. You're just a piece of meat. I get it.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
That is so great.
I've got an important question to ask you before we go.
Yeah.
When are you going to do an album with Kenny G and call it Kenny Squared?
Well, I will never do it on with Kenny G unless he writes the Kenny G check. Then what? I always tell everybody when a drum company goes, "Yeah, we'd love you to play our drums." I said, "Okay, you gotta make a deal that the whole world will understand." Oh, Kenny left Tama Drums, who he's been with for 40 years, and went to that drum company because, they bought him a jet and they gave him $10 million. Right. That makes sense.
Right.
Nobody would ever do that. That's what I was trying to tell him. Like, I'm not going to just move from Tama and go laterally and break up a relationship of 40 years with a drum company. So if Kenny G, people might go like, oh man, I can't believe you played with Kenny G. Yeah. Well, he paid me a lot of money and I actually enjoyed it.
There you go.
By the way, that was just my dry sense of humor too. I want
to know if
I was just going to see if that one landed.
Yeah, when you roll those out on real
Touchdown.
time, I'm wondering was there some preparation to that joke, or did you
That's
just
been premeditated for like a week right now.
that is so great, Sam. Really well done. Really, really well done. And I really appreciate it. And I appreciate both of you. And I really appreciate this conversation. It's been a pleasure. And Kenny, is it ARA or ARO? What's your first three letters of your last name?
ARO. It's AR and then on off. And the way it's been, I was told it should be spelled AIR, like air on off, air on off. I don't know why it came out that way, but it's air on off. That's what I was told. So it's AR and then on off.
Did you ever? My practice initially for 19 years was in none other than Cincinnati, Ohio, about 240 miles, I guess, east of Bloomington. And there's, of course, a music center there called the Aronoff Center. Yeah. And have you played it?
I've never, but I'll never forget the first time I walked around the corner and went, what?
Yeah, I was like, am I about to learn that shit is named after this man? So I was like, okay, I thought I'd throw that one out.
Nobody told me, and I only grew up knowing my family is Aronoff, and all of a sudden there's a fucking building with my name on it.
It's a beautiful building too. It is. Certainly the best acoustics in Cincinnati. It's a very beautiful building.
Yeah, I've never played there. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to share with you more. Yeah. Thanks for being here. We could go on, but let's I think we could tap it out now. I think so, right?
There's very few, and I just want to say there's very few people who really deserve the two words "you rock" like Kenny Aronoff. So Kenny Aronoff, you fucking rock.
You. Awesome.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Sam. Beautiful, beautiful.
I had a wonderful time. Great energy with everybody, and Sam, you're like one of my dearest friends.
I like this.
Yeah, the we and the me. Fred, so nice to meet you. With you and I probably could ignite an entire city with electricity, and Sam would be there controlling it with his cool.
He's got Sam sports a pretty nice Stratocaster, man. He can roll that shit. He's pretty good.
At the beginning of the pandemic, and I'll let you guys go, I kept saying, Sam, I'm coming up. And then I got so friggin' busy because I took on shit just turning my studio into a virtual studio, and then the recordings, then the audiobook, and then it just got crazy. I never had time. I literally would come here and leave like I will tonight at 2 a.m. I'll leave at 2 a.m. and I come.
You're gonna be killing it. You're gonna be just as vital when you're 98 years old as you are right now at 68.
118.
So yeah, I'm not too worried about it, bro. Yeah. I mean, you're
All right, you guys, man.
It will happen when it happens.
Yeah. So thanks for inviting me, and I'll see you guys on Metal. You can be on Metal tomorrow.
We'll be there.
I might get there at 10:30, but I got these builders that are coming and knocking shit at 9, so I'll coffee up and I'll have these glasses on so you won't see the bloodshot eyes.
All right.
Love you, Kenny.
You rock, Kenny, indeed. Peace, brother. Love you. Bye for now. Sam.
Fred.
How the hell are you, man?
Welcome to insanity, Fred.
I know. What the hell? This time we got a guess. We actually caught a fish, did we? It's pretty great.
We actually caught a fish.
Put this freaking hook in the water so many times, and now it looks like some silly fish came on.
Yeah, I think we're now 2 for 4. We're at 50-50 right now. So
50-50 is pretty good.
It's a good start. It's one of those starts that requires a few hiccups. It's kind of like when you're starting a boat or something like that. It's like, and it just hasn't started in a while. So it's to be expected.
Yeah, and that's the sea we're talking about when we say, in that boat we put our line in the water and put a little bit of bait on there. The transcendental bait. I think it's transcendental bait we put on there. This idea that maybe we could
bringing in some good metaphors already. I appreciate that.
Yeah, like maybe we could actually take this conversation out into the next multidimensional stratosphere. So I think when I threw that out into the ether, Adam Quiney showed up. It's like, well, I hear
Yes.
y'all talking about freaking transcendental. What? That's me. That's me. I'm in.
That's exactly what I said too. I remember specifically saying you're talking about freaking transcendental.
I know. When I said freaking, I thought, well, Adam probably didn't even say freaking, but you might have, because we had this conversation about whether or not we could swear. And I'm not the first guy to throw out the word fuck ever. So I'm not going to do it now either. That's up to you guys to toss
I have to admit, I'm a little bit on edge because Adam just updated his haircut to a really, really, really good style.
Yeah, I know, right?
Up until now, I felt like I could kind of compete. I watch Adam on a regular basis on his Facebook feeds, and I thought, you know what, I can compete with that level of handsome. But he just upped the ante, so I'm a little bit on edge about this.
Well, his
Adam,
level of handsomeness is unquestionably at least intimidating, if not, I mean, striking at the very least, and intimidating very likely for those of us who maybe don't traffic in that level of attraction. You know what I mean? Like not every one of us.
Let's just take a moment. Let's just take a moment to just appreciate those clear blue eyes. That's like like a blue sky on a cloudless Hawaiian day.
Now we're talking, wow. Sam.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
I know. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
That's good shit right there.
Penetrating too.
That's
penetrating.
Good shit. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's stuff that could actually make it into the actual cut. Because most of the shit's going to be edited out already because we haven't said shit yet. But I think we should splice this one in. That's beautiful. That Hawaiian night, blue eye, all that. Yum. Freaking awesome, man.
Oh yeah.
This is the hook. Yeah. This is what grabs people.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And you should know because actually you're the first fish, the second fish to gnarl right onto that hook, to just bite it like that. So welcome to
didn't even hesitate.
No, not even. Welcome to Insanity, Adam Quiney. Tell us, let's go. What the hell's going on with you? Why do we even know you, and why the hell do we care anything about what you have to say?
Such an aggressive way to invite me to share about myself.
I could dial it down. Then who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? Is
So we know each other. I think it was Ryan that put us in touch originally, Sam, who is a mutual friend of ours who said, you guys just must know each other. So Sam and I connected, and then instantly we're like, we definitely should know each other. Mm-hmm. And then Sam invited me into the group we're all a part of called Metal. Mm-hmm. And that's where you and I met, Fred. And you and I met because you were, I'm going to turn a fan on. Let me know if it starts to make noise in the mic. It shouldn't be an issue. You and I, Fred, got into connection because you were doing the crazy thing that transformational people tend to do, which is invite people into a conversation where they would just be listened to, which is a weird thing no one does anywhere else. And I was like, this man is doing weird stuff like I enjoy doing weird stuff with people, and we should know each other.
That's
and
right.
So that began how we know each other.
So why
do you want me to now talk about why people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. There you go. Rock it.
That's very
why does anyone
polite of people to actually be invited into a conversation. People just usually reach out to me and have those conversations. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't invite you to have this conversation. What the hell are we doing having this conversation? So that's very polite for it to be the other way around. I like that.
Yeah,
kind of a courageous a courageous thing to say yes to, I thought, because my experience is people were craving being listened to, but we would never ask for that because it's way too vulnerable and intimate. So instead, we just talk a whole bunch, and then people tolerate us until they get to talk a whole bunch, and then it kind of goes back and forth that way. And so for you, Fred, to kind of like put that front and center and make that invitation, I mean, the thing that really intrigued me was I wonder how much people are saying a yes to that. Because it takes a special kind of courage to be a yes to that kind of thing.
Well, I did throw the question out to the group. It's like 200 people or so, 200 plus on that feed. And I think only a handful, maybe I threw it out there maybe 5 or 7 times. And I think I got about 5 or 7 people out of 200 to actually decide that was something they wanted to do. And you're right. I think all of us, isn't it true that all of us want to be all of us want to be heard. All of us want to be listened to. All of us want to be validated or created or at least, gotten at some level. And yet there it was in an open offer, and people tended to shy away.
Well, it's interesting, and I'll pose this question to both of you, but I guess specifically Adam, since we are here technically interviewing Adam, but both of you can answer this. Do you think that has to do with a sort of a cynical viewpoint, a cynical perspective that if that invitation is accepted, that somehow you are being, that there's an attempt to sell you something, that there's something within that they're oh no, I know what this is all about. I know it's yeah, it's just a conversation, right? Yeah, okay. So speak to that. Is there, do you feel that cynicism is partly why that return on that invitation is so low?
100%. So in fact, what I would say is it's a microcosm for people's relationship to love as a whole. So I'm going to broaden this out a bit, but like we're trained growing up that love is not really to be trusted because it'll be like people will be clingy about it, or they show you love so that they can get something from you, or love precedes then you getting told how you suck, or like a million different things. And so ultimately what I would say Fred is putting on offer when he puts that forward is the opportunity for someone to be in the experience of love by way of simply being received and listened and witnessed. And I think what we're really seeing is people's undistinguished relationship to love making itself manifest. So they're like, to your point, Sam, they're like, what am I going to have to give this guy? What's going to happen? Or even it might just be like, that's going to be fucking weird. And I don't think this is conscious, but they're like, I don't know how to be around something that's weird like that. So it's easier for me just to not be around it. And then they don't take them up.
Right. So there's a resistance due to the perception that there's going to be an agenda. And a lot of times there frankly is an agenda. I mean, if we 100%. Think about the way in which the modern world works, a lot of these times it truly is a manipulation with an agenda. It's clouded in this, it's sort of sold in this sweet package that's it's all about you and that there's no agenda when there actually is an agenda. And so, how do people differentiate about when there's an agenda and when there's not? Because I think a lot of that reaction or that initial trigger, that resistance is validated by a lot of experiences that people have.
It's a really good question, Sam. I wanted to look at the word agenda in this question. Because let's say my agenda is to I think that, sell you something, or to sell you a program, or to sell you my coaching, or to sell you something. That would be an obvious agenda. But let's say my agenda was I guess what I'm looking at is a distinction between agenda and intention. That in fact, when I reach out and I want to hear from you, there is an intention. Even if it's somehow pure, it's the intention to learn what humanity's about, or what you're about, or or to offer you something, even an agenda to offer you something that doesn't imply the need for reciprocation. What that's an agenda too. So, or if all of a sudden I want to, create a relationship with you, or you could say that I want to go out to dinner, or, create a partnership, or, and if that all happens retroactively, we might say that it was an agenda-based first meeting. But is there something inherently wrong with having an agenda? And is agenda different than actual intention?
Adam, go for it.
I have some thoughts on that. So bear with me because I'll bring this back. But like one of the places I often see this show up is when I'm supporting new coaches who can't create clients. And the reason they can't create clients, one of them is because they hate selling, which most of us do, because selling sucks and all of that stuff. And they're so terrified of giving people the experience of someone being pushy, or of like someone being in the discomfort of, all of the stuff that follows. And so where they get really messed up is before you can even invite people into any kind of relationship that's paid, you have to create a relationship with them. And before you can do that, you just have to connect with another human being. And where they get messed up is they're like, okay, I'm trying to just connect with a human being, but at the same time, it's true that I'm hoping they'll become a client. And how do I deal with this tension? And what they're creating is like an either or. So they're holding it in their head. It has to be totally separate. I have to just connect with them without any agenda or intention in order to be pure. And I say, like, really what starts to open the door for them is when they realize, oh, it's okay for me to be present and really only focused on connecting with them. And at the same time, let it be true and even known that I'm kind of hoping we do become a client because you're cool and I like what I'm learning about you. And I only connect with people that are interesting to me. And that's the people I end up working with. So it's, for me, the either or is what creates the problem, as opposed to just being able to own the truth of all of it. And then it becomes really simple.
Beautiful. Really well said, Adam. Sam, now I see why we had him on as a guest.
I like that. Yeah, there's a transparency to begin with, and that's part of what I hear you saying. And it's like, as long as that transparency, as long as you're showing your cards and saying, look, yeah, this is true, and this is true simultaneously, that transparency can then be honored and respected, instead of that lingering sort of elephant in the room kind of feeling that a lot of people have that prevents that. That does create that anxiety, that does lead to that. Well, there's someone else here too. You know, that's when there's a sense that there's someone else in the room that's not the two of us. There's another person in the room, and that the reason why it feels that way is because there's not complete transparency. And so what I get you're speaking to is just being totally transparent right up front.
Yeah, we can't manipulate, or at least I believe it's really hard to manipulate people. All of that fear, oh, I'm going to trick them or manipulate them, becomes really hard to happen if I'm transparent and upfront. Look, I'm going to tell you this in the hopes that you buy my condo. Okay, the person knows that that's what I'm doing, but I'm not. It's going to be hard to manipulate them. I've told them. I've let them see the cards.
So I like to explore this a little bit more, because I feel like what we're speaking to is really valuable in terms of not only, you know, for you as a coach, but for anyone who's in sales of any form. And basically everyone is selling something, whether or not they're even, you know, considering themselves entrepreneurs or people in sales. It all has to do with being, with having something that you have to share, and then receiving the value for that which you have to share, whatever that is. And so there's this kind of used car salesman type of subconscious resistance.
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Can we talk?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I really like this sacred geometry over your right shoulder.
Oh, you like that? Yeah, the Sri Yantra.
Yeah, where did you pick that up?
That came from Etsy.
Oh, cool. I've seen in Rhythmia in Costa Rica, they have a lot of this same. I mean, I think this is a pretty common symbol that people see when they're exploring ayahuasca, but I'm a big fan of that one.
Yeah, it's the Sri Yantra. It's supposed to symbolize the multiple dimensions of human energy in its relationship with the cosmos. Yeah,
I buy it. 1 sec, just going to release this beast. Hey, come on, out this way. Get out.
Our 15-minute break. All right, Sam. I sorry to interrupt.
So here's where Adam is. I want to have Adam have an invitation to speak to something that I think is really important, and that is around how every human being, no matter who they are, is selling something. That's just part of being alive, is we have to offer something in exchange for value in exchange. And so what is it that creates that sort of subconscious resistance, that where there's an automatic assumption that a lot of people have that what they are being sold is not going to live up to the value of what they would potentially invest in it. There's like an automatic used car salesman kind of response that I think a lot of us experience. Well, when I say a lot of us, I think this is one of the most common things in the world, is for us to have a hypervigilance that is a sort of a dubious disposition around anything that might be sold to us. And yet at the same time, we're buying things all the time. Every day we're buying things. Every day we are buying products and services that are we consider essential to our well-being. And so what is it about that dubious disposition? Where do you think that comes from? And what do you think we need to do to address that? This is just an opportunity for you to coach who's ever listening to this.
Yeah. Well, I'll share my experience rather than coach anyone.
Sure.
But the first thing I would say is, I love that question, by the way, and thanks for the opportunity to speak on it. The first thing I would say is that where that comes from is totally honest, by which I mean we have arrived at our hypervigilance because the whole world, by and large, is constructed and set up towards selling us something. And I would distinguish selling us something from serving us and from enrolling us in something. So when I'm being sold something, people are trying to get me to do what they want me to do. And then usually that will involve the exchange of money or whatever. But to your point, Sam, we could argue that I'm trying to sell you on Adam Quiney in this moment and what Adam Quiney has to say. That could be an example of it. So it doesn't have an exchange of money, but nevertheless, I'm trying to get you to buy into something. So I'm trying to get you to do what I want you to do. And down this, if we start at the top with selling, we can put a whole bunch of ways of being underneath that, like convincing, arguing, debating, bullying, bulldozing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what we learn growing up from our parents and from our teachers and guardians, which is this person above me in the hierarchy is the person who has the power to let me do something or not. And how do I convince them to let me do what I want to do? So the game becomes about either getting permission or just doing it anyway and getting forgiveness. And then what are the things we have to do to make that happen? And then a conversation that's focused on enrolling someone in something is a conversation where, with their consent, meaning I'm not trying to do this without them saying, I'm being transparent about this. And I'm saying, look, I think that if you come along with me for this ride, there's really something in it for you. And if you're interested, I'd love to explore what that is for you. Here's why I think both of us would benefit from you letting me do X, or you giving me this time off work, or you promoting me to management, or whatever it happens to be. And we're so unused to that conversation because we're so trained in the other side of things. So
Right.
I have to convince you or get your permission.
Right. In that old paradigm, it seems to me there's always a winner and a loser of some sort.
Yeah, right.
Like if I'm paying the landlord rent, the landlord is somehow winning off of the rent that I'm paying. And I might be benefiting from experiencing a roof over my head, but ultimately the landlord is making more and I am sacrificing something in exchange for having that roof over my head, where they end up in a more powerful position than I do. There's kind of that relationship dynamic playing out. And I really get that what you're speaking to in terms of enrolling. A lot of people don't even have that in their vocabulary. It's like enrolling. Oh, what do you mean? Like enrolling to college, enrolling to what? And so what I hear you speaking to is that there's a new way of using our vocabulary, a new semantic type of discussion that needs to be sort of brought into the light more, so that the semantics behind this type of conversation can be more well understood.
Yeah, the risk, of course, is as soon as we use a word like that, it sounds jargony. And the tension there is, to create a distinct concept, we need new language for it. And so we kind of have to almost fabricate or use this new term, because otherwise people would hear like whatever we said and be like, oh, when Adam says X or when Sam says X, he means this. And then they take it and put it back into something they already understand in their life, which is going to be some reiteration of the game they're already playing. So we kind of have to venture into that jargon for that reason.
Fit it into the known context.
One of the things I'm wondering about in this difference, Sam, just given the discussion that we had a couple hours ago, this sort of debt culture, this power gradient that gets served up when there's an exchange of goods for services, or exchange of currency for goods, or exchange of whatever for whatever, two different realms being equated and then like exchanged as a way of evening a score, that ultimately there seems to be a power gradient, so that the landlord is winning. If the landlord is winning by renting me this place, then the contract is inequitable. I mean, the contract is not built on the nature of two people believing they're getting the best out of the situation. Maybe the best I could.
Yeah, it's asymmetric.
It's asymmetric. That's right. And so, and then what it creates is that debt culture that we were talking about just moments ago in our last conversation, like that there's something like I am less than because that entity over there is winning while I'm losing, while they feed me what I think I need and they get what they want. There's some sort of disequilibrium in that. And what I would say to the word enrolling, with some understanding, I think, of what Adam's speaking to with the new distinctive rhetorical, new distinctive rhetorical explanation, is that there's a greater evenness. I offer an opportunity to you that with your consent you see is, wow, your win. Like we both win. There's not a winner and a loser here. We both win. You're like, really? You're going to rent me this place for $1,700? I'm so in. That's just like the greatest deal ever. Meanwhile, the landlord is winning because his payment is only $1,000. And, and it all works out in that way when there's a mutual equivalence. It doesn't feel like you're getting screwed or screwing someone.
So like, most of my work is in the realm of leadership as a quality of being as opposed to a hierarchy. And one of the things people don't like about that is when they want to complain about their boss and that's the reason they can't lead, which is such a great, we're already bought into that, right? Oh yeah, that sucks. If only not your boss, but that's not at all what we're talking about. And what you're describing, Fred, is exactly the crux of that, which is to really be a leadership, we must lead both those below us and those above us, because it's who we're being. It's not the position. And so and this might get a little tricky, but it's, even though this person's above me in the hierarchy, who I'm being in my relationship with them is of equivalence, because I'm enrolling them in something. I'm saying, look, I want to do this. I know right now you're not necessarily there. Here's why I think it's a good idea. I'd love to talk with you so that we can get on the same page and see something. And that's where people start to you really see their leadership take off, because they're no longer playing this game of if only not for da 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 da.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Super well said. Tremendous. So where does that play out in your life outside of coaching? Either of you, you're both just these premier leadership coaches for, really already really strong men. So, people who are already have a life that in most metrics would be considered very successful. And you're both taking these people and moving them up several notches in the world of leadership or self-satisfaction or life satisfaction. Where does this play out in your work? Not only simply to sell them your goods, but then in the work with them. What do you notice? Either or both of you. Adam, since you're the guest, officially.
I get to go first?
Yeah.
Please do. Please do. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, so then I'll give you an example in my life, not related to my work, and then I'll give an example of how this shows up in my work. So in my life, you and I have talked about this before, Fred. Like, I'm really good at convincing. You know, I'm a pretty brilliant guy, so I can come up with a really strong argument, and that's why I used to be a lawyer before this work. And so there's like really well-worn territory, a really well-walked path in my life and just in my neurons to convince people. And when I get frustrated or feel like I'm right, that's what I want to do. And so that shows up often in my relationship with my wife, where we're not on the same page, and I want to bring her this beautifully made flow chart that I've constructed where all of her arguments are accounted for and then proven wrong. And no matter which way you go down the flow chart, it eventually ends up at the place that I'm at. And two things come out of that. One, there's really not any opportunity for relationship. There's opportunity for me to be right and her to acquiesce. And the other thing is that I never get the gift myself of seeing something beyond what I already know and going deeper in partnership with her than I could go in with myself. So that's the first place, is like,
Fred, I don't think you and I know anything about that, right? I don't think you and I have had any kind of experience.
Yeah, I've read about it in those old books back in the day, but no, Shakespeare wrote shit about that. I don't know. I don't know what
silly guys and their logical arguments trying to prove themselves.
I love that
you and I wouldn't have any kind of experience like that. Yeah, the flowchart analogy is great.
It's just awesome.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Let me just graph it out for you, honey. Yep.
Here's the other one. This will be a little shorter, which is so really at the heart of a conversation that I want to have with someone for enrollment, I have to set aside what I'm right about, which is part of what's in the way for people. Is we're like, I'm right that my boss should give me this promotion, and then we try to bring that energy. And if you feel someone come at you with an energy that is, I'm right about this, the automatic is we dig our heels in and we're like, great, let's scrap. Like, we're going to be in a battle if I don't already agree with you. So with my clients, there's plenty of times where they're going to touch the hot stove. And I'm like, they shouldn't touch the hot stove because I think I know better than their spiritual path. And so much of the opportunity there for me is just to notice, like, oh, I've already got the way laid out for them. And there's a part of me that wants them to do what I think is right. And I got to release that, because that's just going to get in the way of them discovering for themselves what is there to be discovered.
Love it. Let me ask you about a couple of terms that I think are sort of hang out in this sort of tentative zone in the coaching world. A couple of which would be alignment and purpose. How do you relate to those terms? There's a lot of semantic kind of communication that gets thrown around and sort of is dogmatized a word? Is that a word? Yes. Dogmatized? That there's sort of a coaching dogma that gets accepted as this sort of, I feel like there's
alignment dogmatizes purpose. Alignment dogmatizes purpose.
Absolutely.
You know that. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. There you go. So I am all about, especially as a coach myself, I am all about breaking up a lot of these semantic kind of structures that we create. Because I look at some of the ways in which these terms are being thrown around, and I'm like, wow, this is just a new religion of dog shit in the way in which it's often used. And there are certain aspects to the way that these terms are being used that also have relevancy too. So there's always, it seems to me, and maybe this is true for anything that fits in within a philosophical or religious or mythological framework, no matter what it is, it seems to me that there's aspects of those types of semantic communications that are relevant and true and legitimate. And then there's aspects that lead us into a dogmatism and kind of a bullshit kind of way of seeing ourselves in the world. So let me just throw that out as an open exploration for you to respond to, Adam.
I love it. Love your way with words too, Sam. Another part of our hook is a new religion of bullshit. Mm-hmm. That's great. Mm-hmm. The ego's job is going to be to co-opt whatever is currently on the table that would serve us moving forward, and then use it for its own nefarious purposes. And its nefarious purposes are ultimately keep me in the status quo because that's what's known, that's what's familiar, that's what's safe and prevents me from dying, metaphorically or literally. So any of these terms, hold on, let me say one more thing about how the ego does its work best, which is the best way the ego can do its work is to take whatever is going to lead to transformation, so to speak, and then use that in a way that kind of sounds like transformation, but actually keeps us rooted in the spot, which is what I'm hearing in your description, Sam, is we can take anything, transformation, alignment, purpose. What are some other ones I've heard lately? Oh, vulnerability. Oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Vulnerability alert.
Yeah.
10 years ago when I was a kid, I got fuck off.
Right.
You're not,
right.
You're talking about vulnerability. You're not being vulnerable. And that's the difference, is most of this stuff becomes something people talk about, but or they know about it. They intellectually know about it, or they talk about it.
Yeah.
And there's no edge in that. You can do
Yes.
that for the rest of your life, and it's masturbatory. It
Yeah.
feels good.
I like that. I like the term masturbatory to describe
too.
it. Yes, that's great. Yeah.
And the thing I want to say is it's not malicious, it's innocently blind. So it's not that these people are like, haha, I'm going to jerk off onto a Facebook meme. It's that we can't see it because that's how our ego is successful. It fools us into buying into it. And then we're like, yeah, I'm really doing the work. And then, but I'm actually staying on the same place, walking on a treadmill, not moving towards what I want.
And I get that what you're speaking to can be anywhere on a spectrum from benign, innocent, sort of a benign, innocent ego response, all the way up to something that's full on weaponized, depending on how it's used. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is, I'll interject here. Cults fascinate me because highly potent leadership and highly potent cultship are very tight. They're very close. And the distinction I notice between the two is that potent leadership it breaks down your existing limiting beliefs so that you can step into your own deeper belief from there. Whereas cultship breaks down your existing limiting beliefs so that the leader's beliefs can be implanted in there. And the difference I notice where one skews into the other is often where the leader stops doing their own work. And that's the point where their ego grabs a hold of it, is like, no, really, you have divine teachings and you need to have sex with your students to convey this to them, and blah, 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 blah. You get the idea.
Sure. You ever considered that path?
I'll tell you, it's funny. And here's the one my ego does is when I get really scared, it's like, maybe you should just tell people you're a psychic and use your ability to read them that way. And then you could make all the money and be on TV and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. Psychic panty puller. Yes. Yeah. Here, let me really read into you here.
Boy.
Your future is under my duvet.
What is it? When I use the word, I have myself double checking and triple checking what you men are talking about. And, in the world of alignment, or in the world of purpose, why am like those two words specifically, but there's other nearly synonymous words. There, I become like I look good when I'm using those words properly in a context. Like when I'm saying, let's find your line. Like when I bring those babies out, those are like shiny guns, And if in fact I'm not really pursuing mine, but I've just landed in a place that I can sound and look good by using the words alignment or purpose, then my work has stopped. I've already arrived. I know about alignment and purpose. Dude, that's all I know about. In fact, listen to me. That's all I ever talk about. And in fact, I'm not aligning or making myself purposeful in any real way with respect to looking at the deeper edge of what, Adam, I think you're speaking of when a leader versus a cultist takes takes an old way of thinking and leaves open the possibility for my new underlying way of thinking to take over, I don't leave that open for me once I decide that I'm a leader who knows how things should go.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I
Well,
stopped doing my
it's
work.
a lot more fun too at a certain point to stop doing your work and start having sex with your students. I mean, let's just admit it. Come on. I mean, what are we all doing this for anyway?
Less confronting.
Right. I mean, come on. If you can just have people pay you and have sex with you and not really have to do your own work, that sounds pretty great.
Sam, we might be shining a little bit of light on why your coaching practice is a little sketchy these days. I maybe we should take some of these things offline, but I'm noticing something in the pattern here that I look, I'm not a doctor or anything, but there is an opportunity to take a look at some of the patterns you're developing here that might shine a light on your purpose as a coach, actually. So we'll get to that another time.
Why, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll explore that another time. Yeah.
Can I say something about about alignment before we shift off of that one?
Yeah.
So, but given what I just said, I also want to say, like, all of these concepts, despite that the ego is going to aim to grab a hold of them, have tremendous value.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think of alignment, the real word that captures that is integrity. And where I relate to that from is it means I'm aligned in my thoughts, words, and actions. And when I do that, and when I work to bring myself more into alignment in more areas of my life, I have greater access to my own power, because now I don't have to manage an untruth, a place where I'm out of alignment. And it's just like a punch thrown in karate. If my elbow, wrist, and fist are all aligned with each other, I can bring more power to it. Whereas if they're bent, the system's just not going to work as well. And so I do want to say, like, despite me talking about, the way I'm relating to the falsehood that comes with them, there's tremendous value in them, which is why they get co-opted the way they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the word nefarious that you applied to it earlier. There's like, it's egregious, actually. It's way out there. It's way out there. And I love that it's also just blindness. It's not necessarily intentionally malicious at all. In fact, usually not. It's just a sort of a blind comfort that comes with riding that wave and not doing your own work. Yeah.
Yes.
Adam, how would you say that this relates to the exploration of one's own shadow too?
Well, I would say it's the heart of it. So, like, the way I experience we evolve is there's the light that we are. Like, for example, the three of us all share a quality I would relate to as brilliance. And what happens if we grow up as brilliance is that in some places, that expression of who we naturally are is going to be just received with love, and we're going to be like, awesome, here, great place to express brilliance. Then in other areas, we're going to get training from the world around us that pushes us to the underexpression or the overexpression of it. So in some places, I show up brilliant and my classmates make fun of me and call me a nerd.
Inflation or deflation.
Exactly. So around those people, and for the rest of my life, people that look like that original training, I dim down my brilliance. And around other people, I might get made fun of or told by my parents that an A is great, but I need to get that A+. And so around future situations in my life that looks like that training, I crank it up to 11. And so I'm redlining myself. It's not that I'm not brilliant, it's that I'm kind of doing brilliance on top of brilliance, which would be like if my dog went out of his way to convince me that he's a dog. It's just weird and unnecessary. So what happens is those two poles are what I call our shadow. And then we create a life rooted in using the strategies of our shadow. So one example of this is that if you ever go and look into often electricians and plumbing, you're going to find a ludicrous amount of brilliant people. There's a ton of brilliant people there, but they've learned to turn down their brilliance because of the training they got. And then they've learned to relate to themselves as their shadow. So you'll talk to them and they're simultaneously frustrated that people don't relate to them as smart as they are. And at the same time, will tell you, I'm just not that smart. I just know how to do certain things. And then they build a whole life on top of this structure. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I've been talking for a while, so I'm going to stop there.
It's
Well said.
totally
I like that.
insightful. Is there something to
Love that.
do to heal or cure that with the embedded electrician or plumber or whatever other, similar strata we're talking about here? These folks who are dumbing themselves down or, disempowering themselves through their own self rhetoric. Is there an opportunity to enlighten, if you will, and I mean that more lighten, even more than enlighten, like lighten the load on those people so
Yeah.
that they can have access to what's really so for them?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, so I would say that's, first of all, there's a distinction I'm going to draw, which is most coaching is transactional and is kind of like a fish hiring another fish to help it be really good in the ocean. And then a little bit of the coaching profession is life-changing transformational magic. And that's hiring someone like a man to reach into the water and pluck you out and show you, hey, look at all this possibility that's available if you didn't have to be confined to water. And so what we're talking about is basically transformation. The water that person's learned to swim in is, I'm not that smart. I wish people related to me as more smart, blah, 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 all the stuff layered on top of that. And what creates a complete new experience of their life is someone that can see through the water for the person that they actually are, start to reflect that to them, and then invite them not just to talk about it, but to start living their life, here's this word, in alignment with what's true for them. And doing so requires courage, because there's a safety that we've learned to hold on to from dumbing ourselves down. And so when we take away that strategy, we're going to be confronted by the very reason we put that together in the first place.
Sure. I want to ask you about mental or behavioral compensatory systems, because this is something that I've noticed coming up time and time again in my own coaching, is that the impulse behind the motivation to become who that person has become has largely been influenced from their deepest wounds. And there's a way in which their behaviors and their thinking have been motivated to prove something to the world. And as they come into that greater sense of wholeness, the compensatory patterns also have to be exposed. And when those compensatory patterns are exposed, there's first sort of, there can be a sense of maybe embarrassment or disgust, or at the very least kind of an acknowledgement of, oh man, I don't want to think about myself in that way anymore. And I don't want to, I don't want to go keep doing that for the rest of my life. And so as there's this greater sense of wholeness that comes in, along with that, there's a whole reconditioning neurologically and hormonally that needs to take place, where a lot of these people, these clients of mine, have been motivated largely by stress, because that stress of negative thinking perpetuates the cycle of, well, I've got something to prove today. I'm going to show up today. Now, they might not wear this on their face. They might think that they've got a good attitude towards life, and they've got a smile on their face, and they've got good connections, they've got good relationships, and so forth. But somewhere deep down, there's still a stress level that is motivating how they're thinking about themselves. And when that begins to disappear, so does also what was motivating them. So they can oftentimes go through this strange period of reorientation where they don't feel as ambitious. And the way I always point that out to them is, what's happening is neurologically, they're developing new synaptic connections and neural networks around a sense of wholeness and inspiration versus stress and needing to prove themselves to the world, or prove something to the world. And so I'm wondering, you're nodding your head. I see a lot. You see what I'm talking about. I'd love to hear you speak to that transformative process as someone comes into greater wholeness, because I can sense that in you're coming mainly from inspiration versus stress as a motivator. And you're coming mainly from wholeness and alignment, to use that word in a specific and accurate way, wholeness and alignment versus from that place to need of ego validation. So talk about that.
Yeah. So the metaphor I like is, which is going to describe the same thing you just described, is like a team playing, we'll say hockey, because I'm Canadian. So a team playing a game of hockey in order to not lose it versus a team playing a game of hockey in order to win. Now, when people first, so we could look at this for any, I'm going to use qualities of being because that's my world. So like someone who is generous, we tend to be most afraid existentially of being the opposite of what we are innately. So what that means is someone who's truly like brings the quality of being of generosity tends to be most afraid of being selfish. People like us that are brilliant, the fear we tend to learn is, oh my God, what if people think that I'm stupid? Or what if I am stupid? Or what if I create an experience that I'm stupid? And you could do this for any quality, right? People who bring divinity into the space are afraid of being, I don't know, profane or whatever it is. So we build our life around not being stupid. How do I ensure I'm not stupid? Well, there's some great strategies. One, don't try. Two, dim my intelligence, because then you're never going to think I am that in the first place. And I've failed, but I've done it on my terms. I never really tried. Another one, read books obsessively, blah, 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 blah. So we create all these strategies to play a game in order not to lose. And the game we're playing is our life. What people think when they hear that metaphor is like, oh shit, I'm playing this game of life in order to not lose. So what I need to do is go and start losing. But what that does is it just swings the pendulum to the other side. That's not how you win the Olympics or the Stanley Cup or whatever the thing is. What you do is you aim to win and you be willing to lose in the process. And so that's really the journey back to wholeness is, would I be willing to give my life my all, practice trusting the brilliance I am, and then here's the part that's really confronting, kind of to what you're talking about, Sam. And then am I willing to be with those moments when I'm confronted with the exact thing I'm afraid of, which is looking, feeling, possibly being stupid. And if I can be with that, holy shit, everything changes, because the whole scaffolding I've built to not have to be that thing, it's all unnecessary. It all falls away and dissolves. That's life-changing and healing, very healing.
Well said.
Indeed. Well, that's said. Very, very, very cool stuff, Adam. It's very, very cool. And it flows very easily, not only from your ideas out your mouth, but over here it flows symphonically. You have a space here of speaking to things that I believe anybody interested in upgrading their life, or anybody interested in optimizing or re-empowering or recontextualizing life, will likely gravitate towards what you're saying. Now, when you're so refined, we talked about that, and you're so refined in your voice, in your image, your presentation. What are you not being by being that?
I bet he even smells good too. Sure. Something tells me he even smells good. Yeah, he's wearing some kind of antiperspirant that actually smells good.
Yeah.
So the question is kind of like, what are my current edges? Is that fair?
Extreme. Well, you're so extreme in your capacity to be brilliant, to have a gorgeous presentation, to make sure that your voice is, perfect, and to your whole background. You are such a fabulous image. You really, it's hilarious. It becomes hilarious how beautiful your image is. And what I'm really asking you is, can you help us see what is that built on that isn't? What is the not that built that? What is the not being?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. None of my belief and my own experience, none of this stuff goes away forever. It's like I lap it on a racetrack or a spiral going upwards. And then the next time I step into the next big game, I'm like, oh shit, there's the same flavor of fear, which I'm now going to talk about. So like my knots, the big ones, first of all, being stupid, a real, what do I call it? Like a perennial fear of mine is that people don't want to come to my party. So if I build a party, then I don't want to invite people because they're going to be like, oh, they're patting me on the head. Like, oh, that's cool that you're doing that party, Adam. I'm sure it's going to be a great party. I'm going to go over here and hang out at a better party. So one example of this is we are all a part of a group called Metal, filled with remarkable humans, and many of them are committed to leadership. And I'm very clear that I have some value to offer. And that fear has been showing up, and like, it's not that I'm running and burying my head. I'm noticing it. I'm bringing that to my coach for support, but it's like, I'm hesitating to bring all of the value I have to offer right now, in part because I want to not do the opposite of holding back and just be like, you must pay attention to me, I have value for you. But at the same time, the other side of that pendulum is like, well, they don't really want what I have. So that is a common fear. Coupled with it is like a fear of not having the impact that I'm on this planet to have. And so I'll either sort of grab you and shake you to make sure that I have the impact, or fuck it, I'm just not even going to try. Maybe I'll just go get stoned over here and amuse myself with video games. Hey, this is almost as good. And then that leads to like contentment, but not really full open-hearted thriving. Mm-hmm. So that gives you some. I can elaborate more, but I just want to put that into the space first.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it. And I love the example. Just want to reflect back to you, the example of what I would call empowered vulnerability in that communication, because you spoke vulnerably without ever losing your strength. You're in your strength as you were communicating something vulnerably. And so you just modeled that again, of course, just to Fred's point, you know, there should be like, you know, the coaching version of like Teen Beat magazine. There should be your face should be on the cover of that. Like that's exactly the type of energy that you just modeled, was this strength in vulnerability. And so, yeah, want to acknowledge that first. And I'm also curious what the vision for Adam Quiney is moving forward. Do you have an evolutionary process that you are in to move in a certain direction that you do? You have a vision that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, they're kind of so this is still like some of my work as well. So as I shared, it might be a little bit not very well refined. So the first is like kind of the background, what's happening with who Adam B's as a man, which is my work. I notice the path unfolding in front of me is like more and more spiritual, which is kind of like the way a flower this is the image that's been coming to me a lot, is like a flower unfolding, and sometimes it goes that way, and it's like, that's not the way you're meant to grow flower. Let me stake you so you go the right way, letting go of all of my knowing how things are meant to unfold. So one of the ways that shows up is like my business kind of just happens. I don't market. In fact, I'm quite against most marketing, and I'm not actively going after people, and yet people kind of come to me and are like, hey, can we talk, blah blah blah. So a lot of like my work in the background is like opening to spirit and letting go of knowing how any of this is going to unfold anymore, and trusting that there's some divine path that I happen to be on, just like all of us. Can I unfold into that? The other side of things, and this is the tension, I don't know how to resolve, I don't have this sorted out, is like, I really want to elevate the coaching profession, the leadership profession, if it's even a profession, and transformation in the world. And the way I want to do that is to be on TV, to run events that impact at like 150 people minimum at a time, and to with all of the love and compassion and ability to let people be exactly where they are, help them see that the thing they're relating to is not the thing they think it is, so that they can step into the next level of depth in their own lives, and to continue to doing that in my own.
Love it.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And it seems like you're at a space where that's really right here with you. Like it's all like, this is, I get that it sounds like to you, like maybe it's rough edged or not quite refined enough for prime time, but it is. It's right here.
Feels that way.
You get to be. Maybe that's what it's supposed to feel like when it's on real time, like that.
Totally.
Yeah. If you have arrived, if you're already that dude, you're going to be a lot less interesting. By the way, you're interesting.
Right. I'm playing a small game. Right. If I can already achieve it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Two concepts go into the boxing ring. You create your own reality, versus you allow your own reality.
Hmm.
How does this match work out in your perception?
I want to answer it like a Zen koan and say you are your own reality.
Go deeper on that. Elaborate.
Sure. So whether I'm creating my reality or I'm allowing my reality is something separate from me in both of those concepts. I allow it or I create it, as opposed to I am my own reality. So I simultaneously can create it, but I'm also creating it from my own reality. And so there's kind of like, people often say like, well, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Both. They came together and sort of like widened out. Like in Taoism, you have the yin and the yang, and they're one and the same, and they're also distinct. So I don't know if I'm getting any closer to answering your question, but this is kind of like how it occurs for me. And this is actually a good example. Yeah. Like that answer is, I don't really know it from my brain. It just came forward from my chest.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. It's another one of those sort of principles that I think gets oftentimes confused and mentalized. I think I just created a word there. Turned into like one of these kind of thought loops that I think a lot of people get caught up in, and again, one of these dogmatic principles that I think deserves examination.
Yeah, here's something I think this speaks to the same thing we're talking about, which is so a common. I'm just going to turn my lights back on here, but a common refrain, especially in early days with like coaching, is people will say, it's just your story, which is so unhelpful, but it is kind of just your story. And what happens is we have our beliefs, and those beliefs determine the actions we take. Then the actions that we take has us create a world around us consistent with those actions. And then that world around us reinforces and reinforms our beliefs. So it's a perfect loop. So saying it's just my story on the one hand is true, and on the other hand is false, because I've got all this concrete evidence for why it's not just a story. It's the reality around us. And so that's kind of the you are your reality. You both create it and allow it, and can change. All of it is captured in there.
Yeah. And I think that one also sort of bumps into a self-limiting loop, potentially, based on the fact that, yes, conceptually, there's so much truth to that we are, that there is a self-fulfilling feedback loop between what we would consider the internal world and the external world of perception. And yet, at the same time, the vast majority of our psyche has been pre-decided by thoughts, feelings, beliefs that we cannot possibly imagine all of them. And it's a continually unfolding experience. So just understanding that in principle does little to actually address those deeper layers oftentimes, because of the fact that so much of it is unconscious. And even the principle itself, even understanding the concept itself, could potentially be used to weaponize ourselves against our own story, so to speak, and then that creates an additional sense of conflict. And then it's like, okay, well, where did this conflict come from? Now I've just created a conflict on top of a conflict when I thought that I was going to try to resolve something,
If only I could figure it out.
Yeah. Figuring it out. These concepts that are otherwise, I think understood to be mutually exclusive. Like for instance, that there is two characters different from each other. One called creating reality, one called accepting reality, and that that you have some choice to pick which of those two you're going to bring into the ring, or you're going to be at any given moment, is sort of trumped over the top by you are your reality, which includes both of those experiences of character. like this, which is really similar to a couple things that you've already pointed to for us, Adam. This, that the early on conversation about, having no agenda and having agenda and being both of those things. Having,
Right.
like really, yeah, I want you to be my coaching client, but I am absolutely, and not but, right? Because but is just another version of in order to, in the meantime, I'm going to create a relationship with you because ultimately what I want is for you to give me money for my coaching services. So yeah, I'll play this game for a while until we get to the nitty gritty stuff. And that's where I'll hand you the upsell. Or there's something like, no, I in the enrolling conversation, I can be all of those things. I actually can be all of those things. And that there's no difference. It's not like there's two different ways of being when I'm having agenda, when I'm like, creating versus being like somehow agendaless. These are all forms of the greater being, like all forms of grasping it all as one, as just a life experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that you drew attention to like anytime two things are in conflict, what we tend to go to is like, well, which should I choose? But the transformative breakthrough is often what is the new belief that would transcend these two things being in opposition with each other? And then that's a maddening task, but it is the work at the heart of it. And we never arrive at the one belief like Neo might. There's always the next, it's like a series of concentric circles. Oh, this belief blew me past that tension down there, but now I'm here and I'm playing a bigger game. And now there's a new belief that I'm being called to create. And I'm still stuck in trying to solve between these two things. Damn it. It's so compelling.
It is very compelling.
Yeah.
We're at an hour. I say with guests sometimes we could just go on and on, but I actually think we really could. We could go on and on for hours. And I would like to have you back on the Insanity podcast and maybe even as a little bit more of a staple on the show so that we can really take a look at that. What do you say, Sam? You think Adam meets that criteria to come back on?
I would love it. Adam is a source of a lot of sanity in this insane world. And that's the juxtaposition that we are here to explore in this podcast, is that relationship between sanity and insanity. How do we live in an increasingly insane world and stay sane, or stay insane if that's what we choose to do? And I feel that Adam has offered a lot of value in that, riding that edge. And so I really appreciate you, Adam, as always.
Me too, Adam. It's really been a great conversation, and your brilliance, that you so easily, you're just like, it's like, wait, is he allowed to say he's brilliant? Like, are you supposed to be able to say that? Am I allowed to actually own that I'm brilliant? Because my upbringing has it be that no.
Same.
No, I'm not allowed to say that. Even if it's like totally obvious. I'm not allowed, especially if it's.
Oh God, I remember growing up with the aphorism, "Pride cometh before a fall," and hearing that so many goddamn times. Oh my God. Pride cometh before a fall. And I don't know how much that has informed my own ability to shine, for sure.
Yeah. It's like,
you guys warm my heart to just, this has been such a rich conversation for me, and I would love to come back and just stay in the conversation. And I love both of you, and really, I appreciate the acknowledgement of my own brilliance, and I'm present to both of yours, and just like what a rich conversation it makes. So thanks for letting me be a part of it. I'm really honored.
It's our honor for sure, Adam. Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming on. And we'll catch you on the flip side. We can let our listeners know. Adam, how do people find you if they want to catch up with you?
Yeah, so the two easiest places are Facebook, because most people are there, and that's the platform I'm on. So I post a lot of my art there. And what I mean by art is just myself expressed. So my writing,
Cool
videos, stuff like that.
I'm always looking for your next post. So it's very, very cool stuff, I must say. Keep going.
Thank you. And then the other place is just to go to my website, which is adamquiney.com. There's only one other Adam Quiney in the world, and he's some guy in England. So not that guy, this guy.
All right.
And
Awesome.
yeah.
Terrific. So great. Okay, Adam, well, thanks for coming on. Sam, anything else here for us?
Oh, thank you, Adam.
Really
Love
beautiful.
you.
Thank you. Love you too.
All right, Adam. I love you too. I love you too, Sam. See you on the next ride. The larger goal of the work that I'm doing is to reframe and alter the conversation of mental illness on a global scale. Over the last 100 years, the one-to-one model, coming in and being seen by one person at a time, is the model that's been utilized. This isn't the only model that works anymore. We are societal beings. We are communicative beings. And in fact, when we're with more than one person, we can learn and we can transform. And because one-to-one isn't the only workable model, I can impact a great number of people in speaking, consulting, and advising positions that otherwise were thought to not be able to have the simple, intimate effect that a one-to-one relationship does. One of the big questions we have is, what is mental illness? What is normalcy? And both of these things are entirely unclear and vague. As a role of consultant, my job is to listen and to provide new possibilities for the people who are having areas of life where they're stopped or where they're simply in a quandary. In the world of speaking, one of the things I bring forth is the process of inquiry. And what I mean by that is, if we get to an answer, we've actually gotten off the road. What we move forward with is asking questions, creating new possibilities, moving forward into creating new ways of looking at things that otherwise we thought we had answers to. If someone raises their hand and shares, whether it be a question or an area in life that they're working with, oftentimes many people, 20 or 30 other people in the room, are sharing the exact same concerns. So this person becomes a spokesman for all these other people in the room, and in the speaking and in the interaction, new ways of being emerge. You realize that mental illness isn't something that actually exists as you thought it was, and therefore moving forward you can live without the restraints of what you thought you had. If you're involved with an organization and this is interesting to you, please reach out to me. If it's a good match, I'm available to speak to a group of any size from 2 to 1,000. Instantaneous transformation is actually available. There is nothing greater in the world than speaking your true voice.
A true voice has to be loud.
This program really healed my heart.
Giving my voice an outlet.
And I'm now a podcaster, okay?
I'm just grateful, just really experiencing gratitude.
And a great experience.
I'm so grateful to have found my voice.
Who I am is ending racism, and that is my true voice. And I really got it.
I did it. I broke through something.
And that's the power of speaking your true voice.
This is The Healthy Healer, where true voice is your medicine. This is where we help doctors and other healers navigate through the challenging times by learning from the best minds in the healing industry. Laugh, cry, and be surprised. It's entertainment, education, and inspiration so you can continue to be the unique and amazing healer you were destined to be. Welcome to humanity. Welcome to The Healthy Healer with Dr. Fred.